This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth, and this is Troubled Blood, a new novel that was just released today that was written by Robert Galbraith, which is actually a pseudonym. It's just a pen name. The real author of this piece is none other than the one and only J.K. Rowling, the famous author behind the Harry Potter series. Well, she's recently found herself in hot water trending on Twitter with the hashtag RIP J.K. Rowling, and this is all because the LGBTQ community is rather triggered over the fact that this new book contains a cisgendered transvestite character. So in this video, we're going to talk about the history behind J.K. Rowling's views on transgendered people and how this has led to the release of this book today with her new character being a cisgendered transvestite, and why the LGBTQ community's response to this is unjustifiably unfound and just kind of ridiculous, to be honest. So we're going to talk about all that and much more. But before we do, guys, I want to remind you that we're under heavy attack here at Press for Truth. As you may or may not know, my Press for Truth YouTube channel was permanently deleted. Google does not like the fact that I'm bringing this type of information to your eyes, and they've terminated my channel. They took me off of Facebook. They terminated my GoFundMe campaigns. They're trying to silence me, guys, but I'm not going to stop. I'm going to continue to produce this type of information, and that's something you appreciate. Please check me out at pressfortruth.ca/donate, guys. Here you can become a patron, you can contribute Bitcoin, you can contribute via PayPal, you can donate other cryptocurrencies, or you can use the Patreon alternative and sign up for a monthly reoccurring amount. You can also send an e-transfer to dan@pressfortruth.ca. Any amount helps, guys, as they're continuously shadow banning me and trying to censor my voice from the internet. Again, if you appreciate my efforts to bring you this information, please check the links in the description below to where you can support me at pressfortruth.ca/donate. All right, guys, I want to start this one with this article. What do you make of this headline? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you read something like this? Opinion: creating a more equal post-COVID-19 world for people who menstruate. I know me, right off the top, I'm a little taken aback by the term people who menstruate. I mean, obviously, only women menstruate. Everybody knows that. The word people implies men as well, but everyone knows men cannot menstruate. That's just pure insanity. In fact, it reminds me of this recent release I saw from the CDC. I had to tweet this out. Another reason why you shouldn't listen to the CDC. You call this science? And they put out this piece in regards to how mothers ought to deal with their babies in the hospitals when it comes to COVID. And they use the same language, pregnant people, as it says up here. And they give guidelines. Wear a mask when caring for your baby, it says. Guys, the idea of a mother wearing a mask around their baby at all times is absolutely disgusting. A young baby needs to see the smile of their mother. I mean, there's some serious psychological issues going on here with babies who are not going to be able to witness their mothers smiling. I mean, that kid's not going to stand a chance in life. This is absolute ludicrous, insane advice coming from the CDC. They go on to say here, stay at least 6 feet away from your baby as much as possible. I mean, guys, this is why we can't be listening to these people. So I agree, and I saw similar things here with this term, people who menstruate. Well, J.K. Rowling saw this article, and she put out a tweet which got her into a lot of trouble, and she simply quoted the headline of the article saying, people who menstruate. I'm sure there used to be a word for these people. Someone help me out. Womben? Wimpound? Woomand? Clearly, she's pointing out the absurdity in this notion that people menstruate and not just women. Well, wouldn't you know it, the internet completely had a massive backlash against her. J.K. Rowling gets backlash over anti-trans tweets, it says, even though there's nothing anti-trans about this whatsoever, but the internet unleashed their wrath on her. She ended up releasing this lengthy essay explaining her position on all of this. It's a really good read, guys. I'm going to put a link to it in the description below. But for context, I want to briefly read a little bit from it here. She says, "This isn't an easy piece to write for reasons that will shortly become clear, but I know it's time to explain myself on an issue surrounded by toxicity. I write this without any desire to add to that toxicity. For people who don't know, last December I tweeted my support for Maya Forstater, a tax specialist who lost her job for what were deemed transphobic tweets. She took her case to an employment tribunal, asking the judge to rule on whether a philosophical belief that sex is determined by biology is protected by law. Judge Taylor ruled that it wasn't. My interest in trans issues predated Maya's case by almost 2 years, during which I followed the debate around the concept of gender identity closely. I've met trans people, read sundry books, blogs, and articles by trans people, gender specialists, intersex people, psychologists, safeguarding experts, social workers, and doctors, and followed the discourse online and in traditional media. On one level, my interest in this issue has been professional, because I'm writing about a crime series set in the present day, and my fictional female detective is of an age to be interested in and affected by these issues herself. But on another, it's intensely personal, as I'm about to explain. And she goes on into her own personal past, into why she, has an interest in these things. But again, this got the entire internet completely in an uproar, to the point where just 2 days ago we saw this, guys, in Vancouver. Controversial Billboard tribute to J.K. Rowling in East Vancouver taken down. What's the controversy? The billboard said, "I heart J.K. Rowling." This is just absolute insanity. The mob, here's another thing. Pattison, the owner of the billboard, kowtowed to the mob. They got all these complaints that this is somehow hate speech, that this needs to be taken down because it's transphobic, and Pattison kowtowed to the mob and had the billboard removed. Here they are removing the billboard. Again, it simply said, "I heart J.K. Rowling." Absolute insanity for this Vancouver Sun article to call it a controversial billboard. But at the same time, it posts some words from J.K. Rowling herself, which gives some really good insight, so I want to read it here. It says, "The famous British author was criticized this summer for a series of tweets based on her own experience of domestic abuse that were cited as discriminating against trans women. The tweets opened the floodgates to comments from members of the LGBTQ community and gender activists, as well as from actors Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint, all of whom starred in the movies based on the author's Harry Potter novel series. Rowling tweeted about an opinion piece with the headline, 'Creating a more equal post-COVID-19 world for people who menstruate.' Rowling said, 'I'm sure there used to be a word for those people. Someone help me out. Woman, wimpound, woman.' In later tweets, Rowling said, 'If sex isn't real, there's no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak truth.'" I'm going to read that once more time. It isn't hate to speak truth. The idea that women like me, who've been empathetic to trans people for decades, feeling kinship because they're vulnerable in the same way as women, i.e. to male violence, hate trans people because they think sex is real and has lived consequences, is nonsense. And indeed it is, guys, but that didn't stop the LGBTQ community from misinterpreting her new character in this book, Troubled Blood, the cisgendered transvestite character. As we now see articles like this coming out from Vanity Fair, J.K. Rowling proves her commitment to transphobia in her new novel. And this is just absolutely ridiculous, guys. There's nothing transphobic about this whatsoever. In fact, there is no trans characters in this book. As this post-millennial article points out, Rowling wasn't even writing about trans people, and the LGBTQ plus activists freaked out. So this is just a short 3-minute read, so this guy really lays it out well, so let's go over it. LGBTQ activists are once again outraged at J.K. Rowling over something she didn't do. Writing under a pseudonym, Rowling's newest book, Troubled Blood, follows the story of an investigation into a cold case involving the disappearance of a woman in 1974. The fabricated controversy surrounds the villain of the story, a cisgendered man who dressed as a woman. Editorial director of the Huffington Post, personal Noah Mickelson, tweeted, just imagine how much of a garbage person you have to be one of the wealthiest people in the world and could be able to spend your time doing literally anything you want and then choosing to dedicate your life to terrorizing trans people. Artist Kira Kosarin tweeted to her 270,000 followers, "Rip J.K. Rowling, she's not dead, we just don't acknowledge transphobes in this house." The hashtag Rip J.K. Rowling trended on Twitter, with Piers Morgan correctly arguing, "The fact that Rip J.K. Rowling is trending says all you need to know about the woke brigade. They're nastier and more viciously intolerant than anyone they preach about." LGBTQ production Instinct magazine referred to the book as transphobic. LGBTQ Nation boiled down the overall argument, stating, "The idea that cisgendered men dress up or identify as women in order to access women's facilities to attack them is an old anti-transgender myth, often explicitly used to oppose transgender rights." Overall, the outrage appears misplaced at best and intentionally fabricated at worst, merely being justified as a means to continue hating the popular author for speaking up against LGBTQ bullying against critics of gender identity advocacy. To begin with, there is absolutely no indication the villain is transgender or representing trans women in the slightest. The fictional character is a transvestite, which, if you remember your Rocky Horror Picture Show history, is a sexual fetish that heterosexual men engage in. Cisgender, as is repeatedly mentioned, indicates the fictional male character identifies as male as well. A transvestite is not a drag queen and is not a trans woman. The issue has absolutely nothing to do with transgender people at all. Furthermore, heterosexual cisgendered men have stalked and assaulted women in women's restrooms and other private spaces while dressed up as women for many years. In 2016, the Daily Signal reported 6 such examples. In 2018, in South Carolina, a heterosexual cisgendered man was arrested for recording women from an adjacent bathroom stall while dressed as a woman. In July of 2020, a heterosexual cisgendered man dressed as a woman stalked a woman to her home and attempted to sexually assault her at her front door. The argument has never been that trans women are a threat to women and girls, but that heterosexual, cisgendered male predators will abuse gender identity inclusive policies to pursue their goals. Hello, Jessica Yaniv, anyone? A heterosexual cisgendered man who is sexually aroused by the idea of dressing as a woman, stalking and killing a woman, is a perfectly realistic and terrifying setting for a novel. Just as Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs demonstrated the difference between transgender individuals suffering from gender dysphoria and the highly disturbed world of a serial killer's obsession and delusion. Buffalo Bill wanted to own women's bodies and acted out his obsession through literally skinning them to make a female bodysuit. Although there has been commentary arguing the movie is harmful to the LGBTQ community, it was in reality a positive social commentary on both misogyny and legitimate transgenderism. Ironically, while Bill's character was denied sex reassignment surgery by his psychologist for his mentally disturbed state, today's LGBTQ movement would argue he had a human right to a taxpayer-paid medical transition. In the same way, what LGBT activists misinterpret as transphobia, in reality, is commentary on the dangers of non-transgender people exploiting the valid interest of the LGBTQ community. The desire to be angry at Rowling overrides reason and a willingness to engage the context of the story. They just want to hate her and feel victimized while doing so. As Robbie Coltrane, who played Hagrid in the iconic Harry Potter movies, responded to prior outrage targeting Rowling, I don't think what she said was offensive, really. I don't know why, but there's a whole Twitter generation of people who hang around waiting to be offended. Demonstrating this fact, Marty Gould Cummings, candidate for NYC Council District 7, tweeted, "J.K. Rowling is dangerous. Trans rights are humans' rights. But by what logic? All Rowling has done is create a villain with a compelling backstory with a relevant perspective on violence toward women in our society. How is she dangerous?" What should go without saying, of course, is that a serial killer can absolutely be transgendered, just as well as any other person of any other characteristic. It's not transphobic to cast a transgender person as an unsavory fictional character. It does not reflect on all transgender people or put transgender people into a specific harm by doing so. In fact, equality is most readily fulfilled through being treated equally with everyone else, good and bad. However, this particular outrage, as is true with all similar transphobic accusations against Rowling, is purely manufactured and simply does not reflect the real story. A really good outline of what's going on here. I'll include a link to that in the description below, guys, as well, because it's true. What they are saying about her and this new book does not reflect the true story. And she outlined it all in her piece on her website. As I said, again, I'll put a link to that in the description, guys. But the bottom line is, this cancel culture is getting so far beyond out of control that these people don't even understand why they're doing it anymore. And they're just playing the victim. And this is why I support J.K. Rowling. She has said nothing that should be considered controversial. Look, men can't menstruate. If that sentence right there is going to get me booted off of some other platform now, well, so be it, guys, because I, like J.K. Rowling, believe in the truth, because the truth is important. And that's why we got to continue to press for truth. Guys, if you appreciate my efforts to bring you this information about today's release of Troubled Blood and the history behind J.K. Rowling and the trans community's beef with her, please click the thumbs up button. Share this video if you appreciate my efforts to bring this to the table. And please don't forget to check us out here at pressfortruth.ca/donate if you appreciate my efforts here moving forward. So that's all for today, guys. I want to thank you for tuning in. Once again, don't forget to share this one, click the thumbs up button, and stay tuned. We're going to have more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.